Hello, my name is Dave Beck. I'm the creator of Distilled, and I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you through how to play the intro game. We're going to go ahead and start game, which will set it up just for myself for the purpose of this demonstration. Now, I've been dealt everything I need to start the game. In my hand is a starting character that I will be inheriting this distillery from. In this case, an individual from Greece who has powers as well as certain setup elements that I'll find out when I drag it onto my distillery board in the office space and drop it there. It will auto deal those things I need that are on the back of my card directly to me so that I am ready to go. I also in my hand have two goals. I get to choose one of those, whichever one I feel is best for me to pursue. I will be revealing this at the end of the game to determine whether or not I've accomplished it and get those points. I'll flip that over to keep it secret, and then I'll actually drag the other one to the bottle up above the market at the top of the table. This acts as the discard. We received one water in the handout as well at the start because of my character starting abilities and resources. I'm going to take that water and place it into the bottom left corner, which is the pantry, which essentially acts as my hand during the game. Now, the way Distilled works is that you have essentially inherited this distillery from a long lost relative. It's your job to bring it back to its former glory over the course of the game. Whoever has achieved the most spirit points at the end of the game by making the most prestigious alcohols will be declared the winner. Now, the beginner intro game is only 5 rounds instead of 7 and has some of the elements of the full game taken away to give it a better, more introductory experience. But the heart of the game is still there, and that is through distilling alcohol as well as going to the market. A typical round has those two things that happen. We go to the market phase first, and then we have our distillery phase. The market phase consists of acquiring things from the middle of the table, purchasing different cards that we'll get to in just a second. The distillery phase takes place right in front of you at your own player board, where you're going to distill alcohol, age it, and bottle it. Sometimes you'll age it out of choice, and sometimes you'll just decide to bottle something right away, depending on what the recipe says. Now, in order to best explain to you Distilled and why it's so unique, I'm actually going to do this in the reverse order. I'm going to talk about the distillery phase first, and then we're going to move on to the market phase. In the distillery phase, the first thing we would be doing is distilling alcohol. Now, I don't have many cards right now, so it's not going to be as true, but what I'll do is I'll cheat a little bit and just pull some things from the market to show you what I mean. Each round, once per round, you are going to distill alcohol by placing at least one card in each of these 3 categories. You'll need to place one card in the water category, one card in the yeast category, and at least one card in the sugars category. You can have more cards than this. I could have 2 yeast or 3 water or 2 grains in this case, or a grain in a plant, depending on what I'm trying to make. For the sake of this, I'm going to put 2 cards in here to show you something in a second, but otherwise just know you need at least one card in each. Now, what we're trying to do here is make a certain spirit that we already know how to make. The spirits we already know how to make are the recipes that we have below our board. Right now, we have a special signature recipe that's worth a lot more points and a lot harder to make. We're going to skip that for now. We have moonshine, which essentially is what happens when we mess up or we fail on trying to make something else. And finally, we also all have vodka to start out with too. Vodka can be made with anything, any sort of grain, plant, or fruit, or any combination thereof. Luckily, I have 2 grains, so I'm headed towards the right track of making vodka. We see it also requires a metal barrel, and it cannot be aged. Luckily, I always have a metal barrel in my distillery I can use, as well as a basic bottle I can use too. So I'm on track for there. I don't need to necessarily have a unique barrel for this case. So what I'm going to do now is distill. The first thing I'm going to do is let the yeast eat the sugars and turn it into alcohol. We're going to do that by determining how many sugar cards we have in the center row, which we know by stacking these we have 2. And I'm going to go over to the left-hand side of the market and draw 2 cards of alcohol. They're all a face-up stack, and add these to my spirit. Because I had 2 grains, I've added 2 alcohol. I count the total number of sugars and add that many alcohol. The yeast has eaten the sugars, it's turned it into alcohol. So I'm going to mix this all together by grouping it and flipping it over and giving it a good shuffle. Now I'm doing this because this is representing it in the still as it's cooking and ready to come off the still. But in Distilled, the game, the unique mechanic is that you never know if you're going to get exactly what you put in on the other side. The reason for that is there's a push your luck mechanic that requires you to take the top card and the bottom card off of your batch, off of your stack, and take them out of the spirit that you're making. This is a representation of the real life occurrence of taking the head and the tail of the spirit, which is a toxic part of the spirit that comes off the still run. But distillers reuse that in future batches. So we're going to do the same thing here. We don't want people to drink it, but we do want to reuse it. So I'm going to take the top card off the deck and I'm going to place it into my pantry and flip it over. Oh no, so I've lost one of my mixed grains. Now remember, in order to make vodka, it doesn't matter what else I have in there, but it does matter that I have the sugars. And in this case, I need at least one grain plant or fruit. I have a grain left in there. Hopefully it's not on the bottom because I'm also going to take the bottom card. I'm going to flip it over. And luckily, it was alcohol. I've pulled this off. These two cards will be able to be used in a future round in future batches. I then take these cards and splay them out in front of me. And I see that I have the mixed grains as part of it. So I bring out my vodka recipe to demonstrate to the table what I've made. And this is when I would do the bottling phase. I can't age it because it says I cannot age it, but I can bottle it. Now, if I had purchased a bottle from the market and I had it stored in my distillery, instead of using my basic bottle, I could definitely use that. This is going to get me perhaps more prestige and money when I do so. But, and the same would go for a barrel, but I don't have those. I'm using the basic ones, and that's completely fine. I count up my spirit points. I have 2 in the bottom corner of my vodka and nothing else on any of the other cards. So I'd get to move myself forward 2 on the victory point track. I then count up my total money, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The vodka is 3. So I get 5 coins to be able to add to my bowl as well. I then can move my vodka recipe back behind my distillery, and I'm going to send these off for others to enjoy by dropping it into the bottle. This is going to auto redistribute all the cards back to their locations to represent how this would be played in real life. On the way back from dropping the bottle off, I'm going to pick up a label at the top of the board of vodka to represent what I've purchased. So here, I then get to place this vodka label wherever I'd like in these 5 spots to get that instant bonus. Free cards, free money, or other thing, or even spirit points if I wanted that as a choice. I'd place that down and I'd get that bonus instantly. And that does not mean I can't make another vodka later. It just means that this spot is taken up. Now, one thing I didn't talk about was aging. Let's just say that I had two different grains in the spirit, okay? And let's also say I had purchased a wood barrel. And let's go so far as to say that I also had a whiskey recipe I had purchased too. I now have a choice between making vodka, because vodka does require any of the sugars, and I have that. And I have a metal barrel in my distillery, or technically I have the choice of making whiskey. It requires at least 2 grain. It's a little harder to make. It costs a little bit more to acquire this recipe, but once I acquire that recipe, I can make it for the rest of the game. But we see here that it also has a wood barrel and an age icon there, which means it's required to be aged. I could decide that I would like to age this spirit, and if I do that, I'm not going to bottle it and get any money or spirit points right now. I'm going to take it and place it into my warehouse, and once I place that into my warehouse, I am then going to conduct the age process as part of my distillery phase. Instead of bottling it for money, I'm going to let it sit in my warehouse and acquire flavor. To do that, I'm going to draw a card from the left-hand side above the alcohol and place this flavor card face down without looking at it on top of this stack. Now I'm going to cheat today and show you what this looks like, but normally we wouldn't. We see that this comes with some, it's a spicy flavor. It comes with 3 extra coins. So this is growing in wealth and worth as well as prestige. I then am going to place the barrel on top of that to seal it in, as well as bringing my recipes down. I'm also going to claim a whiskey label to place on top as well. Now for each round I age, I'm going to add another flavor. So if I decided next round not to bottle it again and let it age, I'm going to add another flavor card to that. And when I am ready to eventually bottle it, I can only bottle or age each spirit each round. I will be able to count the total number of flavors in that deck, and then I will be able to get those additional spirit points. So if I had 2 flavors in that deck and bottling it the following round, I would get an additional 3 points as well. So that essentially is how you distill spirit, bottle spirit, and age spirit. Now, very quickly, I'd like to just go backwards and show you the market phase. Hopefully this will make a little bit more sense now. The market, like I said, is where you're going to purchase various ingredients, items, as well as recipes. And starting with the recipes, we've seen a couple already. Some of them are more affordable and easier to make, while some are much harder or more expensive and harder to make. In all cases, once you've acquired the recipe, you can make that spirit as many rounds as you're able, and as many different labels as there are as well. There's only 1 label per player available. Now, the way this works in the market phase is that you are going to be able to purchase as many cards as you are able to purchase during a round, but only 1 at a time. It all depends on the amount of money you have, as well as your choices, how much you'd like to purchase. It will work in the way that the first player will get to purchase a single card from this market, and then it will pass in clockwise order around the table, where each person gets to purchase a single card. It comes back around to that first player again, who gets to purchase another card. Whenever a card is purchased and an empty spot is revealed, a new card is refreshed for the next player. Of course, that wouldn't happen for the recipes because they are all there's enough recipes for each player and they're face up, as well as the co-op at the bottom is all face up in stacks of these cards. The co-op at the bottom is unique because it is basic ingredients and items that can get the job done for nearly any spirit that you can think of making in Distilled. The trick is that you can only visit the co-op 2 times per round. So if I was the first player and I chose to purchase some mixed grains, we see that it's 0. It's free to be able to purchase mixed grains. That would be my turn. It would move on to the next player. And once it comes around to the table to me again, I could purchase another mixed grain. I could go up to the market somewhere else and purchase something else in any order I want. But if I were to purchase my second co-op card, whenever that would be, let's say I purchased this clay barrel for 3, I would be done in the co-op. I could not go to the co-op anymore that round until the next round of play. You'll want to note that water and yeast have some instant actions when you purchase them from them. But again, once I've purchased the 2 from the co-op, I can still continue to purchase as many cards as I'd like from the rest of the market if I'm able to. The item and ingredient rows up above the co-op are basically deluxified versions of what you'd find in the co-op. For instance, this Dolium barrel costs more, but is also worth some spirit points, as well as has a powerful action when you are bottling spirits. Above that is the ingredients. This is the same thing. Instead of a mixed plants, for instance, for 1, I could purchase potatoes for 3, but also receive additional spirit points and money as well, if those showed up in my spirit when I bottle it. Play continues just like that until everybody has passed. Once everyone has purchased and decided to pass, then the market shifts over 1 and we move on to the distillery phase, which I already walked you through. Last but not least, at the end of the round, you would refill any empty market spaces that are there. You could take a loan. Taking a loan essentially means that you, if you did not end up bottling a spirit that turn at all, let's say I just worked on my whiskey and aged it, I can take a loan of up to 4 money by sacrificing up to 4 spirit points. So that happens usually when you do age a spirit in a round and you don't bottle. Finally, the first player marker moves clockwise and we move the round marker forward to the next round and begin the next round. This happens for 5 rounds, and at the end of the 5th round, when you flip over your When you flip over your reference card, you can see that you will score spirits still left in the warehouse. This will be any spirit points located on any ingredients, any barrels, or perhaps any recipes. You'll reveal distiller's goals, that one that you started with at the beginning of the game. And then finally, you convert money at a 5-to-1 ratio to spirit points. Whoever has the most spirit points at the end of the game is declared the winner, and that is how you play Distilled. I hope this has been helpful in learning a little bit more about how to play the introductory game, and will help you get a quick start on being able to play with your friends and family in the future weeks. Soon I'll be doing an additional short video covering some of the additional items and elements and strategies that you can find in the full game. The full game again lasts 7 rounds and has, as you can see, some other areas that will be filled in on the board when that's played. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope to see you at the table soon.